In our Tibetan translating class, we are currently working through Maitreya's Mahayana Sutra Alamkara, the ornament of Mahayana Sutras, as well as Vasubandhu's commentary on it. And there was one line that really grabbed me, so I wanted to share that line with you today and my reflections on it. This line comes from chapter 2 of the text, which is a defense of the Mahayana Sutras, arguing that they are in fact the Buddha's word. This is a point that I find quite interesting and relevant. In India, at the time of Nagarjuna in the 2nd and 3rd century, and Asanga in the 4th century, there was this question of whether the Mahayana scriptures are authentic or not. And this still comes up today in the West. And in particular, this might come up when someone is new to the Dharma, shopping around, looking at different apps and books and videos, and they might encounter a variety of teachers and teachings. And if they take a sutra that they read in one place and ask someone about it, perhaps a meditation instructor, they might be told, that sutra isn't the Buddha's word. Those practices you're reading about, Mahayana Buddhism, well, that's not even really Buddhism. So this is something I've seen come up. A person in this situation could end up very confused. They're looking for clarification, they're looking for information, and when I saw this come up, I didn't really know how to respond. So now I've reflected on it quite a bit, especially from the inspiration of this text. And the first question really is, well, is it even necessary to defend the Mahayana? You know, I can look at my own mind, and the first thing is, wait, am I getting angry? Am I in an afflicted state of mind? In which case I can think and say, okay, the words of another person, the thoughts of another person, they don't harm the Dharma, they don't harm my teacher, they don't harm my practice. So I need to have conviction in my practice, but I build that through my practice itself. So for instance, from all of our Thursday teachings on Shantideva, we hear about the incredible benefits of bodhicitta. And I don't just have to trust Shantideva, I can see that in my own experience. The mind that I can generate, well, it's weak, it's effortful, it's not very equanimous, but that little bit of altruism is still very helpful to myself and others. So if I think about what uncontrived bodhicitta would be like, that actually is equanimous for each and every sentient being and is conjoined with wisdom, that's going to be incredibly powerful, incredibly beneficial. And the Pramanavartaka makes the argument of how you get from there to complete Buddhahood and how then the Buddha is this reliable teacher. That makes some sense to me. All of the teachings we receive on emptiness, the lack of self, whatever I can understand of that makes sense to me. And when I apply these teachings to my mind, when I bring them into my life, they are again beneficial to myself and others. So these profound teachings that seem valid in my own experience, I haven't seen them anywhere else. I haven't encountered them elsewhere in my life. And I see that they're incredibly beneficial. So who could have taught this if not the Buddha? And why would I not practice it when I see the value of it? So, okay, I know my practice is going to be the Mahayana path. Wonderful. But what do I say to this other person who's confused, especially if I can make sure that I have an unafflicted mind? How can I help them out of love and compassion? Again, I should check my motivation carefully. I don't need them to practice the same way I practice. There's no need to be a Mahayana missionary. And this is clearly pointed out that the Buddha had this perspective himself. In the first book of the Library of Compassion and Library of Wisdom and Compassion, Approaching the Buddha's Path, His Holiness and Venerable Children explain, quote, the Buddha would never force either the goal of Buddhahood or the Madhyamaka view of emptiness on others. He respected people, and according to their present disposition, he set out the view, path, and result suitable for them so that they would practice the 37 aids to awakening, realize the 4 truths, and progress on the path to arhatship. So practicing with the goal of arhatship is fine. I don't need to convert anyone from that if that's what they're set on. But the situation here is slightly different in that it's someone new to the Dharma, and perhaps bodhicitta is something that resonates with them, that attaining Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings sounds pretty good to them, but they have doubt and they're confused based on what someone has told them. They're in a painful state of afflicted doubt. So I would like to help them get out of that painful state. That sounds like a helpful motivation. I can share my personal experience with them practicing the Mahayana, but that sort of experiential, emotional argument might not make much of a difference to them if they haven't already had that experience. Turning to history can be very messy. If we're looking 2,000 years ago, history is not very clear, and the context of early Buddhism is not very well understood. So that's not very helpful. What about a logical argument? And this is where the line from the Mahayana Sutra Alamkara comes in. So it really grabs me, both for its logic and for its beauty. Part of the beauty is in the Tibetan itself. Yödang mena, yömedang, which, when it's translated to English, doesn't make very much more sense. It exists, and if it did not, it could not exist. So the root verses of the Mahayana Sutra Alamkara are very terse, and oftentimes there's multiple meanings in each line. So Vasubandhu's commentary and the subsequent commentaries on the commentary help unpack this. What are the other words we need to add to turn this into a valid English sentence and to really understand the meaning? So part of the meaning here is that if there was no Mahayana, there would be no fundamental vehicle. The Buddha taught the fundamental vehicle, which shows that there is a way to attain Buddhahood. There must be a path to Buddhahood. And why would the Buddha not teach that in a detailed, complete way? So this really grabs me. I'm like, wow, this is such a convincing argument. I haven't yet seen if someone who's questioning the Mahayana to begin with would find this as convincing as I do. But as I reflected on this also helped change my perspective a little bit around the idea of defending the Mahayana. In that, I was maybe really thinking of that as defending the Mahayana Sutras of the Sanskrit tradition. And that's the context of this original work. But someone who is interested in the Bodhisattva path and who is maybe a little bit skeptical of some of the Sanskrit tradition texts, but really resonates with the Pali tradition, can still look to the Pali canon for this path. And I'm not going to go into it in great detail, but I don't have to. Chapter 9 of Volume 5 of the Library of Wisdom and Compassion, which is In Praise of Great Compassion, goes through numerous examples of bodhicitta and bodhisattvas in the Pali canon. And Volume 6 goes through some specific practices of the bodhisattvas and the parallels to the Mahayana presentation in the Pali canon as well. So the complete path to Buddhahood, the bodhisattva vehicle, it does exist there in the Pali canon. So someone who's attracted to that path but maybe is not so sure about the Sanskrit tradition, they can start with Pali texts and look there for explanations of bodhisattvas. And over time, maybe they will grow in comfort with the Sanskrit tradition and see how it's in fact compatible with the Pali canon. So there's really no need to defend anything. Someone who's new to the Dharma might simply not know that bodhisattvas and bodhicitta are in the Pali tradition. That information would be of great benefit to them. No defense is needed. So the Buddha was a very skillful teacher, and he gave different teachings to different disciples with a variety of dispositions. Personally, I aspire to become a much more skillful person who can connect others with the Dharma and help them find the teachings that are going to be of greatest benefit to them.